Hello and welcome! Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, check out these courses, and enjoy this clown-versation! Hello everybody! Welcome to the first clown-versation of 2022. Happy New Year to you. I hope you've had a good break, good holidays, whatever you've been doing, and a happy new year. And very, very excited with the prospect of some very cool conversations in this year, 2022. I've already got some amazing people lined up to talk, including Joe Diffenbacher, Naomi Silman, Bob Berkey, and this week's guest, who is just one of my favorite all-time clown performers, Gaby Muñoz. And I'm very, very excited to talk to her because it's been a little while. We first met, I think, back in around about 2011 when we invited her to the Clown Encuentro, which was a festival clowning that I produced in Colombia. I've seen Gaby perform in a number of different places, including this very cool, tiny little cabaret tent in Edinburgh at the Fringe, and also in this huge theater, Jorge Isaacs in Cali in Colombia. And, you know, what was amazing about Gaby is that in both those venues, in the tiny little cabaret tent and in this huge theater, she was kind of the same, you know, the same impact, the same level of kind of, you know, just mesmerizing every single person in that space. And I think that's the sign of a really, truly great performer who can, you know, move between those different kinds of venues with such ease. So Gaby is also, as you'll see, if you kind of have a quick look at her website, which is chulatheclown.com, that she has an incredible visual sensibility. You know, she's really an artist in the true sense of the word, very rounded, with all these different facets. And I'm particularly excited to talk to her today about this new project that she's been doing with an orchestra in Spain. She is a collaborator, always working with different people, bringing together different artists to create her work. So without further ado, I will welcome onto the stage, the virtual stage, Gaby Muñoz.
Hello, my friend.
Hello. We made it.
Nice you. Yeah. Yeah, we made it.
Some of you may know we had to kind of postpone this by a day because Gaby was dealing with some very sickly dogs, I think. Was that what was going on, Gaby?
My dog is very ill. He's very old.
Okay. Sorry.
So he got an allergy in his body and wasn't allowed to get on the plane. So we had to drive to the south for 20 hours to get there in 2 days. Had a sleepover, and then on the way back it was the same. So I'm really sorry about that. I'm very grateful.
No, it's totally fine. I was also experiencing some travel difficulties, so it worked out for me as well. And it's great that we could just put it off a day and do it. So thanks everyone for kind of bearing with us. I'm just having a look at the comments now. We've got some people tuning in. April, Yvette, Evelyn. Hi, Evelyn from Lima. Deborah Catfish Jackson, my biggest fan. We've got lots of people. Now, this is a conversation, so please do put your questions and your comments into the comments below the video, and whatever you'd like to ask Gaby, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer. Please also, if you get a chance, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That would be awesome to get that support. And Gaby, I wanted to begin by asking you the question that I always ask all my guests, which is kind of a boring, predictable question. So I apologize in advance, but the answer is always really interesting. So that's why I ask it.
Bring it.
Yeah, you know what it's going to be. What was it that got you into clowning in the first place? What was your journey into that?
This is
Into that
actually
world?
the first time that I've been asked that. No, that's not true. It was actually it was lovely because now if I think of it, I actually, because of that, trust the journey even more. The journey as in life a little bit
Yeah,
more and what happens because it wasn't something I was looking for, or that I had any or strong references or connections or not a lack of interest either, but it was such a I didn't know of it. I didn't know the world of
right.
clowning at all. So when I started doing physical theater in school in London, we had to do clowning at the end of the year. And throughout the year, I could sense that I could make people laugh without wanting to. And I didn't know whether that was something positive or negative, or if they were laughing with me or at me or anything. But I was just embracing it as a feeling, as a sensation of okay, so people are laughing. And
Yeah,
um, and suddenly, when we started doing clowning, I found it just extremely comforting. And it seemed like all the years I had been looking for something and I couldn't tell or put my finger on or say this is what I'm lacking or something like an identity that
mm,
I've been sort of trying to explore with this bunch of people, with that group of people. And then suddenly I was home, very
yeah,
strangely. So I felt calm. I
mm,
felt, for once, not cancelled in a way that my mind has always been very contradictory with I am contradictory with my own with myself. um, and then suddenly I found a group that actually validated that or told me that is wonderful.
and the group that you mean the group being the community of clown artists,
Yeah,
clown performers.
yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. So, and you mentioned in part in passing as you were saying that you found people laughing without necessarily intending to make them laugh. Is that something that's still important to you in clowning? Like when you go out, are you trying to make people laugh, or is it something sort of that happens? And what happens if you do try to make them laugh?
No, I don't. I don't really. Neither when I go out nor when I perform
Mm,
intentionally. I mean, there are things, of course, that I feel like bubbles in my stomach that make me laugh. And sometimes I obviously put them on stage and try to share them with others. Sometimes they bomb and sometimes they're great. And sometimes I wonder, like, wow, lost in translation. Like I found that really funny and nobody laughed. Or
mm,
then I'm doing absolutely nothing and people are laughing,
yeah,
which is really fascinating. I love that. I love trying to understand, like, what was it?
yeah.
Um, and in my day-to-day life, I don't know why, but I do have that effect in people without trying. And sometimes it's a little bit even frustrating. Like I'm not doing anything. I'm not even speaking. I'm just sitting in the corner.
So you're a natural. You've got that natural sort of ability, or something about you and the way that you are just kind of tickles people's funny bones somehow.
I guess. Yes.
It's interesting. Does that
Yeah.
happen in Latin America with speaking Spanish more than in English, or both?
What do you mean? Like if I speak in Spanish, is it?
Yeah, like do you notice a difference in terms of that natural people's laughter? Or maybe this is a bigger question about performing as well, actually. Is there a difference between audiences in Europe, say, and Latin America in terms of the laughter?
Yes, of course. Of course there is. Absolutely. But I think unintentionally, I mean, and it's no surprise I work with no dialogue because that's when I make I make people laugh mostly when I'm not speaking.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know, little things that how I do random thing. I don't know how to explain it, but the people have a good giggle with just looking at
You do
me,
have,
basically.
I mean, you do have an incredibly distinctive appearance as a clown, and the kind of expressions and the way that you, just the little looks, the little raising of the eyebrow and the little smiles are very you know, which I suppose is what clown is and should be anyway, right? It's kind of like, I mean, do you see it this way, that it's kind of a distillation in some way of who we are in real life?
Of course, I think it enhances those existential questions inside, right?
Like, who are we? Why are we alive?
Everything. I think that's one of the first feedbacks I got from a teacher in school, actually. That I think it was, yeah, probably the first or second time I was on stage while we were doing clowning. And I entered and people were laughing and I was like, I don't know, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. And how I was already having this conversation inside of myself, like going, how am I actually feeling about this?
Mm.
Like, that person I don't really like, but he's laughing at me, you know,
Not
sort of thing.
like that or not.
Is that a cool laughter? Is it, should I be hurt, or are they with me? Are they, you know? And then the teacher told me that what was funny was the question mark in my eyes,
Okay.
and it made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I feel like, yes, there's so many questions, there's so many inner dialogues or inner narratives that keep shifting and changing. And as long as you can let others see
Mm.
that that's happening, I find that extremely different and curious and fun, or funny, not in an obvious way.
I'm just recalling some moments in your show, in perhaps Quizás, where I don't remember the exact moments, but I just can really clearly visualize these this switch that you're talking about in a way, from, because you have a quite a high status character in some ways. Your clown, I think, you know, tries to be, right, quite in
Exactly.
control
Yeah. Yeah.
and
She tries
poised.
to.
And then there are these moments when clearly you in your character don't understand something that's just happened. Like an audience member has said something weird, or people have laughed at an odd moment, and there's just like a slight widening of the eyes, really, or something like that, and just like, I'm still in control, but I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, because
Yeah, exactly.
that's what you're talking about, but it's so subtle.
I like the awkwardness. I like awkward moments.
Yeah.
And I think that's also like something I can relate to, the sort of the British humor, or the darkness in the British humor, which is many
Definitely.
times so awkward and it's so funny. It's so effective to me.
Yeah, it's very, yeah, it's true. I hadn't thought about that before, but it's very British compared to maybe a bigger kind of sense of humor in Latin America, perhaps, that's more common, like a more physical, more outward.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
hmm. Chad from the Red Nose Factory, hi Chad, says, curious about your character. Can you talk about who she is? And are your performances done with the same straight face like all your photos? Is that part of your character? So tell us about Chula the clown, and because in a way that's maybe the extension of the first question I asked you about when you started to clown. How did the character sort of emerge and appear?
It emerged because I was brokenhearted, basically. So I owe so much to this man. Um, and when he saw the show, which I'll tell you a little bit about it because it was really funny, he saw the
Mm,
show and he was like, it's basically a show about a woman, um, who's left wearing a wedding gown and trying to find the love of her life, basically. And if you read between the lines, it also has to do with self-love and self-esteem and all of that. So when I did the show and he came to see it years after, he was really shocked. He asked me, "So, who was your inspiration?" And I was like, "Oh man, don't even get me started. But I thank you so much for all the material you've given me." And we haven't spoken any ever again. But basically, it started as an exploration of that, of time passing, of solitude, of loneliness, and the craving and the hope that we all human have to fall and get back up and continue and try again, even if it doesn't happen. And that duality or juxtaposition was very interesting for me. The layers of which you can see, but the other things, it's not necessarily given to you that easily. It's just a sense of feeling, because there's sentiments that are so, in a way, cliche, and in another way they're so human, and there's no one who does not know what being alone or sad or euphoric or afraid is. So in that sense, I started because I wanted to heal myself, and I didn't know any other way to do it, but to do it in this sort of exploration or voice, or voicing it out. But then, to my surprise, it was very open and many people connected with it. And then many people that had also other ideas of what the show was about.
Right, because it doesn't have to be just about love and about relationships.
Not at all, exactly. And that was so good. And I still have friends from the first shows I was doing with that character. So coming back to the character, that's basically how she came to life. But it's been gradual too.
Yeah. So, because it feels like you've kind of crafted and nurtured that character over time.
Yeah, exactly. As you were saying, I do think it is an extension of who I am. So of course I don't have the same questions, existential questions, as I did when I was 30. I am 40 now. So of course I've shifted my life, my thoughts, and therefore my character has.
Does your I'm curious about your creative process when you start work on a new show or a new piece. Does it always start with the character and where you are at the moment in your life, or other kinds of inspiration? Like what are your sort of starting points?
It varies. It sometimes has to do with the things I'm going through. And then there's some other images that just trigger my imagery or my imagination, and I start, like, I'm very visual, so I start seeing scenarios very clearly. And many times I write them down without knowing if it's going to be something else or if it's just an idea that just. But I think that's the hardest, right? Like to work an idea.
Yeah, because, well, logistically, it's hard, I guess. Is that what you mean? That, to get yourself into the studio with all the elements you need and give yourself the time to actually put an idea on its feet and work on it.
Or to even explore ideas. I think well, maybe I'll speak from my side, for myself. But sometimes I am scared of my own ideas. So I discard them, or I feel like, that's really nothing.
Right.
But I'm more excited about this other idea that I see very clearly in my mind. And sometimes the one that I was afraid of is the one I should be working on. So I tend to go back to the ones I drop or I leave behind and revisit them and say, like, this is something that is making me feel. So this might be the path to go. And I'm just being scared of where it might take me. Or if I get lost in the process, which is also part of creation.
Yeah, absolutely. Your Gabby, can you tell a bit about your second show? I'm not sure if it's your second actually or a third, but there was a show that you were working on when I last saw you a few years ago, which and you tried a few bits out at the cabaret. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's called Dirt. It's my
Yeah.
third show.
That's your third show. Okay.
Yeah.
So has that been completed and performed at this point?
Yeah. I mean, I premiered it in 2019 in Mexico City, and then I showed it in Helsinki as well. And then I haven't been able to tour it again.
Yeah.
Or to take it out. But it's also a show that's allowed me to particularly this piece to be lost during the creation process. And that made I don't particularly like this word, but I felt quite empowered. I really, it's not maybe the term I would like to use, but I felt empowered in a way that I felt very free, and I felt very confident and comfortable with the team of creators that were beside me and that I had chosen to work with, because they were all sort of like missing something, like me. They were all like a little bit, and that was so great because they were free. And they understood that I had to get lost in order to come out with something. So during the process, they kept seeing bits and bobs, and there were many times like, what the hell is this? But you do your thing. Yeah. And by the end, I pulled it off, I guess. I mean, something at least felt very genuinely honest and me. So in a way, that's how I pulled it off. I don't know if the outcome was anything.
I'd love to see it. Is it a show that's available online, or do we have to wait until you're performing it again?
It is not available online, so you'll have to wait. I don't know. Maybe maybe I can just put it online.
It's probably videoed in some form, I imagine. Exists.
Yeah, of course.
So what is it about? Can you give us a quick summary of it?
I think most of my work has to do with searching or looking for identity. And in this particular case, it had to do with an identity as a woman, and the relationship with my body, and in a way also talking about all the layers we put in order to be safe as we grow old, and how the delayering can be painful but so liberating.
That sounds
mostly
incredibly
because
complex ideas
it is
to communicate visually.
Yeah, exactly. But it's done in such a ludic way that it's playful, and it has to do with fast fashion too, and lots of shit around and covering yourself up, and it's just false expectations, things from outside, not from yourself. So when you really take everything and peel every layer off, and you see who you really are, which is basically the clown. It's going into that depth of just take all the masks, all of the ideas of who you think you are, and just be.
But you're playing with the idea of masks as well, right? Is it in this show that you wear the naked suit that I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen
My
on
new
some of your
uniform.
yeah, which is
I love it.
did one of these artists you're working with create that for you, or did you make
My
it?
sister did.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, just the idea of a naked suit is kind of a beautiful ludic thing, right? You're sort of playing with the idea of nakedness and stripping things down, but it's actually still something
Exactly.
that you've got on that you're covering up with.
Exactly. And it touches with the idea that I want to talk about without being too literal.
Yeah. I really want to see this show. It sounds it's sort of impossible to describe, but it sounds amazing.
It is. It's just very like it is very like philosophical, I guess.
Yeah. Your work, it seems to me, is really I get this feeling from looking at the website, but also from what I've seen, and that little snippet of dirt that you showed in the Clown Encuentro, that it's really like performance art. As it's like clown and performance art, and where those
Oh
two
wow.
meet. Does that resonate for you, thinking of it that way?
I don't know, but I like it. Yeah, I guess.
I think partly because you clearly have the sensibility, this visual sensibility of an artist, and creating these really strong images. But also you're kind of dealing with social issues, right? You're
Yeah.
really, this is not sort of a self-indulgent thing, which I think clowning can sometimes become, like just playing out our personal
That's interesting.
personal traumas, which is not wrong in itself, but it's that link, it's creating that universality, I think, isn't it? That
Yeah.
generalization to other people, so that it's not just, as you said about the perhaps quizás, it's for you, it was about relationship and searching for love, but for me, when I watched that, it was really about the I suppose idealizing some goal, some objective, something that we want, idealizing that and thinking that that's going to make us whole and happy,
Yeah.
and then that fails catastrophically every time, and then we go back and look for it again.
Exactly.
Like that.
Which is yeah, I see what you mean. I don't know how to describe it, but that is for me the comic or the comedy on the absurd.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
have to be much more than that. It's just because it touches you and you relate.
yeah,
And for me, that's my kind of comedy. Yeah, something where I laugh. I laugh, not always from my intellect or my mind, but there's something in my stomach that makes
deep
me,
down.
yeah, exactly. That reminds me that I am alive.
Yeah, it sounds so simple when you say it that way, right?
Yeah,
um Mike wants the your website, so I'm just going to put the URL
sure.
of the website, which is chulatheclown.com. So
Yes.
I'll pop that into the comments there for anybody who wants to go visit Gabby's website. Patrick says, "You rock, Gabby."
Hey, Patrick.
So do you, Patrick.
So do you.
And we have Ginevra from Italy. Very cool. Now, I
Very
would
cool.
like to, well, first of all, if anybody has any more questions, please put them into the chat so that they don't get missed, because people always think of much more interesting questions than I can. So it's good. Put your questions down below. And I wanted to shift gears a little bit, Gabby, to this project, this collaboration you've been doing in Spain with this orchestra. To shift gears a little bit, Gabby, to this. I'm just so like, seeing the images of this on Facebook have been incredible. And I thought maybe what I would do for people who aren't familiar with this is, I think I can do a quick screen share.
Cool.
And show, because there's a video on YouTube of you and Alondra de la Parra, who is a conductor who you've been collaborating with. So if I can make this work, let's see. There. And is that big enough, or shall I? Let me see. I'll take us off and just no, actually, I'll leave us on, because then you can comment.
Well, this is for the Deutsche Welle, but I think there's a.
Y rodamos estos elementos que son los peces o son las.
So there's a lot of wildlife. There's birds. Is this the part with the
personaje silencioso? Parece que silence of sound, es el silencio en el sonido. Me permitía tu personaje dar ese silencio dentro de, y ese acto dentro de la música.
Bueno, a mí me gustan los locos. Los locos. Entonces, confiar, obviamente.
I mean, I just wanted to give people a sense. Oh, here's the birds. The visual spectacle of this. So you've got kind of projected animation going on in the background. And then this, which is just phenomenal, where you're sort of, it looks like you're playing with the music. You're sort of interacting with the music.
It definitely feels as a breaking point of a beginning. A beginning that had to happen, that was boiling to happen for a while. And I definitely see this as an opus one of many things that I love to create with other artists.
Those annoying things that come on in YouTube videos.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks staggering. I'm like, wow. And then I assume those videos were taken without the orchestra actually in place, like during a rehearsal, because there were lots of chairs in the front.
Yeah, this has now changed quite a bit. This was done in August, what we just saw, and we were rehearsing without the orchestra. So now in October we rehearsed with the orchestra, and we had an open rehearsal in Girona, with the orchestra, with all the visuals, with everything, and it was so good. It was great. It was great fun.
Yeah, I just can't imagine. I mean, you're there on stage with how many people?
Well, during the rehearsals, it was 60 other musicians, but there will be 75.
That's so cool. 75 musicians and you.
Yeah.
Sort of like as this like magician kind of conjuring these images, controlling birds and fish and all kinds of things.
It's also, I mean, it's a project that we've been working on for the last almost 6 years.
Wow.
Yes. So we wrote it together, and then And then many things happened, and then she had 2 babies, and then I was traveling, she was moving, then we had a sponsor, then we didn't have a sponsor, then COVID happened. So it's been such a push to do it. And by the end of the rehearsal, we were both in tears, extremely emotional, because it had been so hard to do it.
But worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
What's it about? I mean, what's the sort of sound of silence, right? Is what it. But can you give us a little insight into what is the narrative arc of it, or the sort of
silence of sound?
Silence of sound. Thank you.
So we wanted to talk. Her first idea, because she approached me after seeing one of my shows, and she told me, there's an idea I have that I'd like to talk to you about. And her idea was that she wanted to create something to introduce each segment of the orchestra. And she told me, and I think you as a silent character can be that narrator, that quiet narrator. And then once we started talking and doing lots of desk work, we also talked about what we had both experienced as female artists in our field, and what we would tell our child version now, on how we thought we couldn't do it, or how we wanted to be, what we wanted to become, and what we're doing now, and if we could be that same persona, or that same element. If I could be that child in her as a conductor, what would she tell me if she could meet me? So it is that fight. It is a fight with the ego. It's a fight of discovery, but also a fight of becoming egocentric with, once you don't understand that you have an effect on what you're doing, and how you can really kill it when things and art and creation normally asks you to let it breathe and just find a step behind and just let it live in front of your eyes. Just for you to be a witness.
What is it that kills it, that prevents that freedom?
Understanding that. I think understanding like where to place the ego, and how unfortunate sometimes it can be.
And was that part of the message that you felt you wanted to convey to your younger self?
I mean, not particularly in that sense of ego, because I don't think as a child I had that, or I mean, I did have an ego, but I don't think it was in my way. But as an adult, I do become more, hard to say, but yeah, your ego sort of shifts. And it's nice to see the younger version of yourself and say, thank you for teaching me that freedom. And for reminding me that I can be that. No matter how old I am.
Yeah. That's really, really interesting, because I feel like there's this shift that's happening for me. I don't know if it's happening for you at this sort of similar sort of age. You know, that there's a sort of a point of, it feels to me like in life there's this kind of you know, roughly speaking, a kind of youth, and then, you know, that builds towards a certain point, maybe around the early 40s, and then at that point you kind of you're not young anymore, and and you have to kind of reinvent yourself, you know. And this is maybe what people talk about when they say midlife crisis. You know, people hit this moment where they're like, oh shit, all those beliefs and things that I had as a young person aren't really relevant anymore, or they're not working for me anymore. And who am I now? And I'm
Absolutely.
wondering if is that just me, or is that there for you at this point? And is that something you're exploring in your work?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have thoughts, and even during the pandemic, much more, I have been thinking of what else would I do if I wasn't doing what I'm doing? And there's no way I can imagine myself not telling stories. So finding other formats, finding other ways is absolutely fine. But something that I know that I'll do until the day that the curtain comes down is that I like to tell stories, no matter what. But it's
Yeah.
also good to have always this check-in with oneself and to say, where am I? Am I still enjoying it? Is this still making me happy? Because I respect so much what we do, our art form, that I would never want it to become a job or a work. I have to do this and I have to. Then I would definitely move on and do something else.
That's
So
right. It
having
has to
those
be. Yeah.
check-ins, yeah, yeah, exactly. I can't. There's things that you can't fake. I think clowning can't be fake or faked. You can't
People
say,
try.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's the thing about
I love it. I absolutely love it, and I have lots of respect for it.
yeah. Yeah. And you're a wonderful proponent and example for us all. So thank you. That maybe leads quite nicely to I really want to know about this new show that you're about to make. If it's not a top level secret.
No, it isn't.
What can you who are your collaborators and what is it all about? Because you're just about to start, I think. You're doing it this year, right?
Yes. Yes. So I submitted an idea, a treatment of what I wanted to talk about, and to some venues and theaters and producers. And then they selected the piece, and I'm making it in collaboration with Chameleon in Berlin and Recklinghausen, which is another festival in Germany, and Assembly. But this was organized by the what's it called? Marché International de Cirque Contemporain of Montreal.
Okay.
So they did this whole thing, and they wanted to basically work with I think 9 artists in different fields. And so I'll start in a month and a half. I'll start rehearsals of what I wrote, which has also to do with identity and what you were exactly now saying of a midlife crisis or growing old, a female perspective of what aging is.
Oh, beautiful. So are you going to show up in that rehearsal room with a lot of ideas ready to go, or are you going to show up in the rehearsal room with like, right, guys, what are we doing?
Myself and my dog, my very old dog. Hello. I do have lots of ideas, actually. Let's see what happens with them. But I do have lots of ideas, and I have like a clear description, or what I'd like to say, like a structure of play. And then now I need to find the meat, so to speak.
And who are the actual collaborators? Like, who are the actual artists who are going to be in the room with you?
I'm on my own. I'll be doing it on my own. But of course, there's the group behind doing the set, the costume, all of that, the music. And most of them are the collaborators I met during the orchestra project.
Oh,
so
cool.
It's the costume designer from there, the set designer too, the set builder as well. So it's sort of stays in a family.
Yeah. And then, all being well, when does it premiere?
It premieres the 25th. I'm doing a demo on the 25th of April.
Oh, wow.
Which
Pretty
is
soon.
going to be streamed. So I'd love for you to see it.
Okay.
And then the
Yeah.
premiere is on the 25th of May.
I'm just writing this down. 25th of April, did you say?
Yes.
The first one. That's very cool. So, yeah, I mean, if you can get me the link or whatever the information is, I'll make sure, you know,
Absolutely.
I kind of put it out to the folks in this network, and we can maybe do a big push for that, because it'll be amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And then since it's in collaboration with Edinburgh, with the Fringe, are you going to be performing it in August at the Fringe or in Edinburgh?
That's the plan, yes.
Because I think I'm going to be in the UK in August, so I might just have to come and see you.
Fantastic.
That would be
I'm
so
so
good.
looking forward.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope everything works fine. As we were talking a little earlier, right?
It's just,
hard
I've just been in the UK, you know, as you know, and it's just like, you don't know what's going to happen from one minute to the next with travel, you know, with what they're going to require in terms of tests, in terms of quarantine. And if, as an artist, you know, you're trying to go somewhere to rehearse or to perform, and you've got to do 10 days of quarantine before you can do any of those things, it creates almost an impossible barrier financially. You know, what are you going to do? Just sit around in a hotel for 10 days before you can begin your rehearsal or do one performance or something?
Yeah,
so I really hope that. Yeah. What's it been like for you up to this point, Gabby? Have you gone on this online route that some people have gone on in terms of teaching and performing online?
Not much, not a lot. I tried at the beginning, and then I found it really frustrating. And I'm not a tech person, and I really struggle with my eyesight, basically. So it's like, are they still there? They're looking. Oh, yeah. Don't look at them. Don't look at the computer. Then look. You know, it's just like, it's so bizarre that I thought, no, maybe it's not. It's not for me. I did try. I did have a class, a mask making class online, and that was beautiful, and it was lovely. A clowning class I haven't given it online. I feel nervous. I'm very curious on how you do it. I don't know how I could do it. On rehearse and shows, I haven't really. I was more focused on. I did my book also as a way of celebrating my 10 years as a clown, as a professional clown, and also gathering all the archive and all the photographical things I've done since, to see also the evolution. And then when I had it all put together, I thought I should definitely make a book. So I started doing that, and that's kept me very busy.
That's very cool. Is that published? Is that available?
Yeah. Look. This is it.
Oh my goodness. That is incredible, Gabby. How beautiful.
Yes. Quite big.
Wonderful. And where can we get it? Is it sort of something that's available from the publisher, or?
It's available from the publisher and from my webpage as well.
Very good.
And in Mexico and in different bookshops.
Yeah. And who's the publisher?
It's called Sycomoro.
Mexican, local.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful. Congratulations. Amazing.
Thank you.
What a beautiful thing to sort of, you know, I think a lot of artists don't have the time or the wherewithal perhaps to like look back at and archive their work in that way. So I think that's an incredible thing to have done.
I'm happy.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so folks, if you want to get hold of that, I guess the best way to do that is to go to your website. And would it be in the shop page there? I'm just looking right now.
Yeah.
In the shop. There it is. Look, Chula the Clown, 10 years, book, 2020. That's such a cool pandemic project. Brilliant.
It was, because we made it on Zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I didn't get to see the designers or anyone. It was everything done on Zoom, which was very rare and great.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good example of what is possible on Zoom, right? I mean, there are certain aspects of clowning that I wouldn't try to do on Zoom. And I think one obvious example is like ensemble work, where in clown, there's a huge difference between being live with other people in the space where you're performing together and presenting and trying to do ensemble work online. But if you're doing solo work, and particularly with the kind of teaching that a lot of the teaching that I do and the workshops I do are not necessarily focused on technique and physical clown skills, but more on the kind of self-exploration, inner work of the clown, and in a sense, being in your own space on your own is not an obstacle for doing that kind of thing. So you can take people through a process when they're in their own space, and it can be just as deep and kind of revealing as if in some cases it's even better, because people aren't sort of in a unfamiliar or and they're in their own environment, which can feel very safe and familiar, and so they're able to kind of go deeper with certain things. And also an interesting thing that I've discovered, and because doing these Clown-versations, Gabby, I've talked to a lot of people, and some of them have, like you, have really, like Hilary Chaplin, for example, I talked to a few weeks ago, and she was like, no way, I'm not doing anything online. I can't.
I can see it, of course.
But like Avner, for example, and Misha Usov, who's another clown that I spoke to a few weeks ago, have gone full on with online stuff, and they're just now pretty much doing all their teaching online.
Oh wow.
And finding that it works for their particular technique. It works really well. And I guess they're also adapting exercises and making them work for an online context.
I mean, that makes sense. I did give a workshop about creative process. So how to have an idea and how to make it happen in a way. And that was great, because there was lots of exercises or things that were okay in this new format.
Yeah.
But when I think of clowning and, as you were saying, ensemble work and looking into the eyes of others, and I find it really challenging.
It is, partly because there's this weird thing of like, who am I looking? Am I looking at the camera? Am I looking at the face? And if I'm looking at the face, I'm not looking at the camera.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to overcome that.
Very frustrating.
I don't understand why they haven't invented a camera in the middle of the screen. Surely.
Right.
Somebody should tell them, invent that, because it seems really like an obvious thing to me.
Yeah.
Couldn't they like hide it behind the screen somehow, so that when I'm actually looking at you, because it's slightly disconcerting.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you're doing that. I mean, I'm happy to hear that it is a possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, sure it is. Yeah.
And of course, things like this, talking to you, can happen online, which I feel like maybe back in the day we wouldn't have done this, because we're all I don't know, we're all just much more comfortable with this video Zoom format now.
That's true.
Mm. Well, Gaby, I'm gonna wrap up, I think, because we're coming to the top of the hour, and it's been really wonderful and fun talking to you. And I feel like we could just go on talking forever, but there has to be an end point.
Thank you so much.
The curtain has to come down
For the space and for talking to me and sharing a bit of what we're doing and how our lives are these days.
Yeah. And, you know, thank you so much for being so open and generous with your experience and your knowledge. And I feel sure that everyone watching is getting a lot of inspiration and, you know, just optimism, I think, from hearing you and just what you're doing at this point, even despite all the kind of challenges we're facing. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
thank
folks.
You everyone who's there.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in again. Next week, I think we'll be back to Thursdays. I can't actually quite remember who's on next week. You know, that's how organized I am. Let me have a quick look. I wonder if it's somebody. Oh, it's Joe Diffenbacher. Do you know Joe?
Joe who?
Diffenbacher.
No, I don't.
He's a very interesting gentleman based in London who teaches clown and mask, and has a very good book, which well, I'm not going to look it up now, but you can tune in next week and find out all about Joe Diffenbacher, because he's a good guy.
Definitely. Will do.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Gaby. And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Please, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, do so. And please share this video with all your clown friends. And yeah, awesome. Big round of applause for you all, for us. Thank you so much, Gaby.
Have a lovely weekend.
Yeah, you too. Bye.
Bye.